So all else being equal, when the Federal Reserve's balance sheet goes down, that represents money disappearing from the system. Even so, they still have over $6.5 trillion worth of assets on their balance sheet. And that is $6.5 trillion worth of debt assets that are currently paying the Federal Reserve interest. You can see assets like the 10-year US Treasury are currently paying 4.2%. And so any of those bonds that the Federal Reserve owns, they are currently getting paid 4.2% on. Now, it is true that the Federal Reserve does print up money in order to buy up assets, but it is also true that they also operate like a regular bank in that they receive deposits. It's just that they don't receive deposits from people like you and me. They receive deposits from banks. The Federal Reserve is quite literally the bank for banks. And in return for taking those deposits, just like a regular bank, the Federal Reserve does pay interest to banks. This is called the federal funds rate, and it is the amount that banks get paid for holding reserves overnight. So when people talk about the Federal Reserve raising or cutting interest rates, it's specifically the federal funds rate that they are talking about, because that is the one interest rate the Federal Reserve actually controls. And you can see how when the federal funds rate is very high, that would incentivize banks to keep their reserves with the Fed so that they get a really high interest rate risk-free. However, if the federal funds rate is really low, let's say at 0, then those banks need to make a profit on their money. So they're gonna push that capital out into the private market, try and lend it to individuals and businesses so that they can have a positive return on their money.